Are you ready?
They want. Then, of course, armor and weapons and accessories will all build a character. So, depending on what type of weapon you're using, you're going to want different. You're going to want different accessories. So, we definitely want to be building houses and building characters, building fun experiences while they explore.
Very cool. Excellent. Just as a small note, I think the threshold for mic activation may be a little high. When it gets a little quiet, it's actually turning your mic off a little bit. Just a small note. I think some of the people in the stream may be having a little bit of trouble hearing you guys. But not to be with you. I can still hear on this side, so it should be okay. But that is amazing. Now, is this the kind of thing where you mentioned earlier with the spears as an example that you may find a spear and it has a certain ability? Is this the kind of thing where perhaps like a rare weapon of a certain type would have its own unique ability or a stronger variant?
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Yeah. And if there are 5 spears in front of you, they might all have different things. If they're unique.
Okay. Man, that changes a lot of things. That's pretty amazing. So, a couple quick things on combat while we're talking about that. Is combat going to be designed both around solo and group play, or will it be scaling? What is the plans in terms of a single player's combat experience versus a group versus a guild?
So it's very much a dynamic world where I can go and I can go down solo into the underground. I can explore. I unlock a large cavern. I dig myself into the side of a huge cavern, and there's a bunch of NPCs. Now I can choose as a player to try to tackle that as a solo player. If I'm in a group, I can certainly run out there and try to grab all the bad guys at the same time because I'm in a group. We definitely are going to be iterating and adding more content. We'll be working with Storybricks to add things like that feel like events that happen in the world, where there's a thing that I need to do, that I need to accomplish in order to get something to happen. And I can certainly work with my guild to do those things. I can be solo or I can be group. So we really want it to be flexible and not let the players' social circles dictate how much fun they have. We want to be able. So you may walk into a cavern and it may be, oh, this will be too difficult for me. I should find a friend.
Yeah, and I got just one word about combat: catapults.
Catapults.
Yes.
Interesting word.
Catapults?
I mean, there's this idea that claims can become a place where combat happens, right? It's not just that there's PvP out in the world or adventure down in the caverns, right? But the idea that you're essentially building battlegrounds. Like, hey, here's my castle. You guys come and see if you can break it down.
Yeah, totally.
Really?
So, the idea of PvP on a claim is something that we definitely are going to be exploring soon. We want players to be able to, and then we want to give them tools so that they can make their own games of, all right, let's play capture the flag on my claim.
Yeah.
And what does that mean? And we want to put those mechanics in so they can set those up, reset their claim whenever the game is done, sort of thing. It is just an extrapolation of the things that players are already doing. There's already jumping puzzles. There's already mazes. They've tried to set up these games, and we want to support them in any way that we can so that when you walk into the game, it isn't the content that we have provided that you're consuming. It's it's whatever content you want. You can go explore and fight the Storybricks AI.
Yeah, and what I think is really cool, right, is, and we like Darrin mentioned, we're already seeing this in the alpha, is we've been saying, please come join us, because in this early phase when we have a fairly small player base, talk to us in a year, the player base is going to be 1,000 times what it is today. Right now, have the ability to really talk to us, to help us design things. When someone designs something cool, like these grappling hook obstacle courses we saw, things like that, we say, holy crap, how are we going to play the game?
Right.
Like, what tools do we need to provide to support this kind of gameplay? So right now, the things that people are doing in the game, teaching us, we need to do. And so we definitely want you to come early if you're passionate about the kinds of things we're talking about, because you can make a real impact.
Yeah, and we really, really want to. We knew, as I said before, that the community, the players would come up with crazy things that we hadn't thought of, and it happens all the time.
Yeah.
we love the the back and forth that we have with our alpha community and hopefully our beta community as well.
Yeah.
That is absolutely incredible, and I can tell you right now, in my 2 decades of gaming history, I keep coming back to the concept that everything about this project is kind of new and really just energizing to this whole thing, and the idea that you guys are watching the players and doing everything you can to facilitate what they want in the game is almost an alien concept in game development. I mean, you think of the waterfall and all the development. This is completely different. This is something totally new, and just it's extremely exciting. This is incredible. So, kind of going on. Well, a little bit of a segue, but just to kind of keep the questions going. Are there any plans? Because we've gotten this question a lot recently. Are there any plans for movable voxel objects or anything where you could, for instance, put a single voxel in your map and then have it start rotating, and then anything you were to attach to that would rotate with it, to kind of bring a motion and movement into the plots outside of the predefined props?
Right. So there's 2 answers to that question. One of which moving voxels is a completely different animal than moving props, as we probably all understand.
Oh yes.
So I would. While we may want to do those things, I would never even begin to talk about them without, because Steve Klug, our technical director, would punch me right in the face if I did.
Yeah, I think what's really interesting is we get a lot of great questions like this, and where we end up is not like, yes, we want to do that, or no, we don't want to do that. It's we have to figure out if we can do that.
Yeah.
Because so many of the things that we're doing are completely different. It's not just the philosophy of the project, it's the technology,
yeah.
It's, the framework, the design, everything is different than what any of us have done before. So, something like that, absolutely, we're looking at if we can do it,
yeah.
And we have to figure out if we can do it.
And most of the things that are in Landmark right now are because we said, I don't know if we can do this in another game. And if we were making a normal MMO, we could probably do it. I mean, I've made lots of them. I understand what things are possible. I don't know what's possible. Sure, maybe. That'd be great. All those things would be cool. Now, the other answer that I would give is that we want, so right now you've got props that you can interact with. You can click them and they do something. They animate.
Doors, windows.
We
absolutely.
want physics-based props that will imagine an elevator that'll move up and down, or a trap that will fling you away. Those are things that we can do with work. Obviously, everything requires work, and so I don't know when we would do that. But those are things that we really, really want to do, so that you can have some form of automation. You can have fun. Having the traps in the world will make a huge difference, I think. Not just traps, but things that move players. Because moving around is fun. As Heroic Movement proves, you can just have fun by moving.
Yeah, and we see things in other games that we love.
Oh, yeah.
Where once you give players the tools to start messing around with this kind of thing, like they just come up with crazy stuff. I mean, people are making traps in Landmark now, even without them, right? It looks like you're running up a hill and then there's a giant pit. Like, happens all the time, So we're really excited to give people things that have kinetic motion and that they can mess with, because I don't even know what they're going to do with it.
Yeah.
That sounds very exciting. It's kind of interesting. I can think of an example of that. Rift has a housing system. They just nonchalantly put in a way to make it so the ground you could slide on. And within a week, there were probably 500 new entire big slide levels where people made these giant slides that they could just go around, move around the whole thing, go through like tunnels, almost like roller coasters. Incredible. Sounds like you guys are already thinking about that and more, which is just fantastic. Keeping everything going here, are there any plans for any major tools that we haven't seen yet that are on the way? And by tools, I mean building tools. I figured out what you were saying.
We really have a goal to make the tools that we have powerful enough that you don't need to be overburdened by having 30 tools, right? We want you to be able to get in and do a bunch of things with the basic tools that you have, and the not so basic tools that you have. Some of the tools are very powerful, meaning and by extension harder to get. But we've seen that players get them even better than we do sometimes. They've created some crazy things, and we're like, okay, how is this possible? How did you do this?
And I mean, we've talked about this too, where the analogy I like to use is like kitchen gadgets, right? Like we can give you an avocado slicer and a pineapple slicer and an apple slicer and a mushroom slicer and all these things. You can also cut all those things with a knife. And if we give you all the specialized tools, you're not necessarily going to find ways to innovate, right? Things like microvoxels and anti-voxels, these are people trying to address, perceived limitations in the tools. And what they're doing is they're creating new ways to play and new ways to use things that we didn't even know existed.
Yeah, I mean, it's those constraints that cause all of this or create all of this creativity, right? Players making some of the most awesome things if you've seen those. So that doesn't mean that we won't have different tools or what is probably more likely modifications to our tools to address things that we feel are issues. But we don't have on the schedule a bevy of tools because we never want the barrier of entry to the game to be so high. When you walk in and you're like, I'm going to build something on my claim. You've got 15 tools in front of you. That's very intimidating. Right?
Yeah, the very first time I heard about Landmark, when I came in and Dave Georgeson gave me the overview on what it was, I didn't even know it existed, right? So it was quite a surprise. I was terrified that this might turn into Photoshop the MMO.
Right. which have you seen? Fantastic piece of software if you know how to use it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you have the book that you can read and understand it, and you take the class, right? And we don't want that for players. We want players to be able to come in and have powerful yet intuitive tools.
So elegance and simplicity, kind of.
Yes.
Okay. See, and it's really interesting because I hadn't thought about that, and I think a lot of people are just kind of in the more mindset, and that's really something to kind of get out there because that makes a lot of sense when you guys say it like that. And I can imagine the power of the tools we have now is already incredible. I mean, between the smoothing tools and the line tools, and the rate at which we can get out creativity is on a level that I haven't seen in another game. So it's pretty phenomenal. It's pretty.
Yeah, we're not done designing those tools either.
No.
They're still in the process of being refined.
Yep.
I mean, the smoothing tool just underwent a big change a few weeks ago.
Right.
It's probably gonna they're all gonna continue being tweaked, added to, enhanced.
Their
Really,
interfaces changed and tweaked and tuned. So yeah, we're definitely working on that, making it better.
and I mean, a lot of this is what you guys are telling us, right?
Right.
Or what you guys are building. We're seeing the way that things are happening and saying, oh, here's a limitation of the tool we didn't realize, and it's actually constraining something cool.
That's the power of the community that we're working with and the process that we're working through. Because previous to Alpha, there were 10 people building. Now there are thousands of people building, and we get all of that feedback, and we watch the streams, and we watch their YouTube videos, and we go and visit them in game, and we see what they've done, and then we have conversations because they're educated, they understand what's happening. They can help us, figure out what needs to be tuned and tweaked with the existing tools, and if a new tool needs to exist.
Very cool. Very cool. Great. Well, guys, I know we're kind of pushing the time here, so let's go ahead. Over the last couple days, we've been collecting questions from the community in some forums and letting people vote on kind of what they want to hear and what they'd like to hear from you guys. So I do want to preface by saying the following questions. Some of these may get close to the boundaries of what you guys can talk about. Feel free to, at any point, just say pass if anything comes up.
Oh yeah, we're good at this. We spend a lot of time training the folks on what can and can't be said.
Perfect. So let's go ahead and get started. Here's a very interesting question. This is from one of the community members, Jacko. He was wondering, in the blueprint, you say things like AI editing, dungeon creating, making story arcs. Are these going to be delivered in a UI where players are able to, say, drag and drop things around, or are we going to see things like scripting languages and things of that nature?
Fantastic question. So the answer is that what we want to present to the players is something that is intuitive to everybody. This goes back to the tool question, right? That everybody's going to be able to understand it. Everyone's going to be able to grok without reading a manual. So scripting language would be an example of something that is powerful but clumsy and not usable by players. So drag and drop, things that are very obvious in their use is definitely our goal.
Perfect. Great. Excellent answer. And does that mean this will be simplified? And what about people who are better at using things like scripting tools? If that's like a coder, for instance, who is it? Is it the kind of thing where it may be diversified down the road, or is this something where it's going to be more of a unified interface?
It's a difficult thing to answer just